Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Fowler here again with Jazz, ready to read the next bit of the Twits. Now the last bit we heard was when Mr. Twits tied balloons to Mrs. Twit to stretch her and she went flying off into the sky. Now has anyone done any exercises at home with balloons? Balloons are really interesting. You can make lots of fun things out of them. You can make stress balls if you put flour in them. You can make water balloons. You can practice blowing them up and letting them go and seeing how they fly around. So maybe that's an investigation you could do at home to find out a bit more about what you can do with balloons. Okay, we're going to carry on reading today. So Mrs. Twit comes ballooning down. Mrs. Twit may have been ugly and she may have been beastly, but she was not stupid. High up there in the sky, she had a bright idea. If I can get rid of some of these balloons, she said to herself, I will stop going up and start to come down. She began biting through the strings that held the balloons to her wrists and arms and neck and hair. Each time she bit through a string and let her balloon float away, the upward pull got less and her rate of climb slowed down. Jazz, come here. Jazzy. Sorry, Jazz got a bit distracted and started playing with the ball, but she's back to listening to the reading now. When she had bitten through 20 strings, she stopped going up altogether. She stayed still in the air. She bit through one more string. Very slowly, she began to float downwards. It was a calm day, there was no wind at all, and because of this, Mrs. Twit had gone absolutely straight up. She now began to come absolutely straight down. As she floated gently down, Mrs. Twit's petticoat billowed out like a parachute, showing her long knickers. It was a grand sight on a glorious day, and thousands of birds came flying in for miles around to stare at this extraordinary old woman in the sky. Mr. Twit gets a horrid shock. Mr. Twit, who thought he had seen his ugly wife for the last time, was sitting in the garden celebrating with a mug of beer. Silently, Mrs. Twit came floating down. When she was about the height of the house above Mr. Twit, she suddenly called out at the top of her voice, Here I come, you grisly old granunion, you rotten old turnip, you filthy old frumpet. Mr. Twit jumped as though he'd been stung by a giant wasp. He dropped his beer. He looked up. He gasped. He gasped. He gurgled. A few choking sounds came out of his mouth. He said, Oh! I'll get you for this, shouted Mrs. Twit. She was floating down right on top of him. She was purple with rage and slashing the air with her long walking stick, which she had somehow managed to hang on to the whole time. I'll swish you to swazzle, she shouted. I'll swash you to swizzle. I'll gnash you to a nozzle. I'll nosh you to a nuzzle. And before Mr. Twit had time to run away, this bundle of balloons and petticoats in fiery fury landed right on top of him, lashing out with the stick and cracking him all over his body. The house, the tree, and the monkey cage. But that's enough of that. We can't go on forever watching these two disgusting people doing disgusting things to each other. We must get ahead with the story. Here is a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Twit's house and garden. Some house. It looks like a prison, and not a window anywhere. Who wants windows? Mr. Twit had said when they were building it. Who wants every Tom, Dick and Harry peeping in, seeing what you're doing? It didn't occur to Mr. Twit that windows were meant to be mainly looking out of, not looking into. And what do you think of that ghastly garden? Mrs. Twit was the gardener. She was very good at growing thistles and stinging nettles. I always grow plenty of spiky thistles and plenty of stinging nettles, she used to say. That keeps out nasty, nosy little children. Near the house you can see Mr. Twit's work shed. To one side there is a big dead tree. It never has any leaves on it because it's dead. And not far away from that tree you can see the monkey cage. There are 4 monkeys in it. They belong to Mr. Twit. You will hear all about them later.